After a decade of war and the deaths of 32 Australian soldiers, the finish line is in sight for our frontline troops in Afghanistan. In a major speech today, the Prime Minister Gillard has announced an exit strategy to start next year, a year earlier than expected. The withdrawal of other NATO forces looks set to be announced ahead of the US presidential election in November. The news will be welcomed by many Australians, but greeted with dismay by some in Afghanistan who fear the very real prospect of the Taliban returning to power after foreign forces leave. In a moment, we'll cross to Kabul for reaction, but first, Hayden Cooper has this report.
This is a war with a purpose. This is a war with an end. We have a strategy, a mission and a time frame for achieving it. We are serving our national interest in Afghanistan.
It's been a long war that's killed 32 Australians and wounded hundreds. But today, in the Prime Minister's landmark speech, there was a glimpse, though heavily qualified, of a mission accomplished moment.
Bin Laden is dead. Most of Al-Qaeda's senior leaders have been killed or captured. We have pushed Al-Qaeda's remaining leaders into the Afghanistan-Pakistan border area. There have been fewer attacks by insurgents than in the same month in the previous year.
In the US city of Chicago next month, political leaders are hoping for a milestone. They'll meet to outline what's now expected to be a new, more ambitious timetable, in which mid-2013 becomes the new goal for the international forces to move into the background.
The Chicago summit is the finessing of the withdrawal of combat troops. But the crucial item here is that the armed forces of the countries that are there now are going home. And this is the way they announce it and finesse it.
When transition in Uruzgan is complete, Australia's commitment in Afghanistan will look very different to that we have today. We will have completed our training and mentoring mission. We will no longer be conducting routine frontline operations. The provincial reconstruction team will have done its job. The majority of our troops will have returned home, and there will still be some work to do.
That work will involve an ongoing deployment of some sort. Although the focus will shift to aid and economic development, it's most likely that Australia's special forces will have to remain. Certainly that's what the Afghan government wants.
Yes, that's part of the mission beyond 2014 to get our special forces trained, but at the same time being enabled, being confident that if there are cases, emergency cases that they need the support of your forces, especially the special forces, they can count on them.
The Afghan National Army is more than 300,000 strong, but what sort of an army is it? Many soldiers are illiterate. There are frequent problems of drug use and troops going AWOL. And recent history suggests Taliban insurgents have infiltrated the ranks.
At the moment, I think the Taliban will be looking at this with a certain degree of satisfaction.
The Afghan National Security Forces are strong enough, and they're getting even stronger the way the transition is moving forward, because they're more focused on training them, they're more focused on enabling them.
Michael McKinley isn't alone in raising serious doubts about the capabilities of the ANA.
All of the expert opinion coming from the United States and from Britain, and even here in Australia, suggests that the Afghan security forces are a long way off being self-reliant and capable of mounting a counterinsurgency, and that applies even more so to the police force.
And what about the future of the government itself? The Prime Minister's speech tried to balance optimism with realism.
None of this is easy. There will be hard days ahead.
But there's a fear that once foreign forces leave, the Taliban will return. It's a prediction made only last week on 7:30 by one Taliban veteran.
I believe in 1 to 2 months the Taliban will capture Kabul.
No, we don't see any trouble with with this system and with this government and this state continuing well into the future. and in a better future.
Even after a decade of conflict, deep uncertainties linger.
After 2014, democracy in Afghanistan will probably be as far from achievement as it has been at any time in its history. I think we need to understand that Afghan history, tradition and culture might one day move towards democracy, but they won't do so at the point of a gun and in the presence of what basically is an occupying military force.
Hayden Cooper reporting.